Welcome back to another episode of Card Talk, a podcast where we spend just a little bit of time talking about cards from Lord of the Rings card game. I'm your host, Dave Walsh.
And I'm Grant Thompson, just along for the ride.
And before we get into today's card, let's just spend a little bit of time talking about how you, the viewer, can keep up with Card Talk. We have all sorts of ways to do it. We have a blog, Cat Attack 22, or Matt, as we like to call him. He keeps up with the pod. So any card that we review on the pod, he writes about it over the blog. So if you prefer the written word, go over and visit us at cardtalk2018.com. And then Micah has Second Breakfast, where he does a live playthrough. Well, sometimes not live, but he uploads a playthrough where he has deck building restrictions and plays a specific quest. Uploads it to the YouTube channel every other week. So that's awesome to see. And we have a email address. So cardtalk2018@gmail.com if you want to get a hold of any of us here at Card Talk. And then we have, last but certainly not least, a way to keep the keyboard clacking over at the blog or the lights on here at the pod. You can join us at patreon.com/cardtalk2018. So Grant, what is today's card?
Well, today we are going back to the core set yet again. Another, I would say, a staple of the tactics course set cards. The Blade of Gondolin, the one-cost tactics attachment, which is an item and a weapon attached to a hero. It is restricted. Attached hero gets +1 attack when attacking an orc, and after attached hero attacks and destroys an enemy, place 1 progress token on the current quest.
Well, what do you think?
I actually like this card, and generally I don't play it for the +1 attack for when attacking an orc, because this card is all round very good. Essentially, as long as your hero is participating in an attack that kills an enemy, you can advance the quest. Generally, I pair this with the likes of Grimbeorn or with Legolas, who are constantly engaging enemies and attacking enemies. Just so that I can get that extra progress. And I mean, you put this on with Legolas, there's 3 progress you're placing with each kill, essentially. The +1 against orc enemies, yeah, if you're looking around for quests where you'd prefer to have maybe less progress and more direct damage, maybe the Dagger of Westerness would be a better choice. But if you're wanting the +1 and you know you're going to be up against a lot of orcs, and then this could be a nice replacement for that. But if you've got enough room, run them both. Especially if you're running, say, the 3 Hunters contract, where you get to have 3 restricted attachments, then Golden Belt for the 4th. There's no reason not to, because that obviously gives you more attachments, which gives you more chances to crush the encounter deck.
And to be clear, the 3 Hunters contract requires you to flip it in order to be the most effective, and you need to have 2 restricted attachments on each hero that you have. And then when you flip the contract, not only do you get all the restricted attachment stuff, but you also get +1 for every +1 willpower for every restricted attachment on each hero. So,
and then you can also exhaust it to heal 1 damage off every hero you control.
Right. So, the Blade of Gondolin, one of the things on the front side of it, before you flip it, you reduce the cost of the first restricted attachment by 1. So this thing is free in a 300's setup contract.
Yeah, and that's reduce the first attachment played on that hero. So each hero gets a reduction on their first attachment played on them each round. It is ridiculous.
It's right up your alley. You love those hack slash things.
I'm definitely a hack and slash.
Yeah. I like the Blade of Gondolin. It's I think that it was really good at the beginning of the game, or if you just have the core set when you just own a limited card pool, and then it's not phenomenal that you have to put it in every deck, but the conditional bonus, the +1 attack, attacking an orc, I would say that 70% of the enemies in this game are orcs. So it's not like orcs are few and far between, or you're not going to come across orcs. It's like orcs, spiders, and undead or something. It seems like there's some Dunlendings, and there's some there's other things, werewolves.
It depends.
Animals.
It depends on the scenario. I think it depends on the cycle and scenario whether or not you're going to come across orcs or come across Dunlendings, undead, trolls.
Yeah,
it all depends on the scenario.
Yep,
but yeah, you'll generally find most cycles have at least 1, maybe 2 quests with orcs.
Yeah, definitely tons of orcs. I'm not sure if the Dream Chaser cycle has orcs in it.
No, that is
it's all those Corsair enemies, but I don't know if
enemies.
I'd have to look more specific. But the point is that orcs are all over this game. So that's, while it's a conditional bonus, it's not it's not that restricting. It's pretty widely used.
Yeah. I generally just use it for its response.
Right. And then I think in the core set, if you're going to play Legolas, like this, I think this was designed with Legolas in mind, obviously, in the core set, because he puts 2 progress on the current quest, and then this will put another one, and then you can put, this is not unique, so you can put a second Blade of Gondolin on him, so you could put 4 progress on the current quest, and that makes Legolas, as long as he's attacking, a fairly strong, quest. I don't want to say quester, but a fairly strong, progress putter on her. To the order of what Eowyn does. Eowyn, quest for 4, and Legolas would be able to just put 4 progress wherever it goes, and then outside the core set, if you couple Legolas with something like Asphalloth, and then because Asphalloth can go onto a Noldor or Sylvan hero, then now you're putting 5 progress. And so it's funny to see what you could do with just placing progress, as opposed to, and I think Arod, his horse, also you could do. I don't know. There's just, you could end up putting a lot of progress in a lot of different places.
Yeah, it's pseudo questing after the fact, because with Legolas and the Blade of Gondolin, enemies have to be destroyed. And the only downside is if you don't get enemies. If you're in a quest where enemies are few and far between, this isn't necessarily maybe an ideal attachment. I'm thinking the Hills of Emyn Muil for one, where enemies, yes, there's a few there, but they are few and far between.
Right. There does have to be a good balance between enemies in order for this to really to really sing,
Yeah, this sort of combination I think would work well with maybe the Steward Sphere or one where you have to clear locations, but you've got a good smattering of enemies that allow you to place progress.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking of things like the seventh level and anything in the
Yeah,
Casa Doom, where there's a lot of wimpy enemies, and then there's some pretty, there's some tough locations and things.
yeah.
Yeah,
But
it's a good attachment, and just a rules clarification. You can't if a location is immune to player card effects, you cannot put the progress onto the location, and that actually stops it from going onto the quest. So there has been some questions where, if there's an immune location in the active location place, and then the quest is there, can you bypass the active location because it's immune and then put it on the quest? No. If you can't get it onto it kind of just stops where you can't do anything anymore at the active location because it's immune. And I don't think that there's quest cards that are immune to. I don't ever remember seeing quest cards that are immune to player card effects. So, and not that there's a ton of player card effects that would affect quest cards, but there's some.
I think there's quest cards that you can't place progress yet because there's other ways of getting around it.
Right, there are some of those, but yeah.
But other than that, I don't think there's actually anything like that.
Yeah.
And just for a quick clarification on side quests, once you enter the combat phase, the side quest is no longer the active quest card.
Right. It's only the active quest for the quest phase, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, I like the Blade of Gondolin, and what do you think of the art of this thing?
I think the art's done really well. I like the detail put on the blade. It has that fantasy feel, and the blade itself looks very well done.
Yeah, I mean, I like it. I don't love it. I feel like this is early course. It falls like. I like the idea of the art that you're showing a sword that's either coming out or going into its scabbard, and and it's very ornate, like Gondolin swords of Gondolin would be. But I just feel like the art is blurry and not crisp, and I would like to see it more, have more, I don't know, pizzazz. I would like to see this, but in like the 4K version, or 8K version, or whatever the most recent version.
Well, I'm busy looking at in the 2-player limited edition starter edition set, so I've got a close-up version of the blade rather than the version that's a bit more zoomed out.
Yeah, still not like crisp though. I know what you're. Yeah, I mean, I pulled it up too. Before we ring this guy, do you want to talk to us about what Gondolin was, Grant? I assume you know what Gondolin was, so you're the resident lore expert. So
Gondolin is an elven city back in the first age of Lord of the Rings, even before the first age, when some elves went off and settled in Valinor. Another group of elves settled a city within the continent and became a major city, so to speak. and they produced weapons such as like the Blade of Gondolin we see here, but also, if I remember correctly, Glamdring, Sting, and Orcus were also of Gondolin make. Now, come the end of the first age, or into the second age, I can't quite remember, Gondolin fell when a couple of Balrog, an army in Balrogs attacked, and Glorfindel actually died defending the refugees from Gondolin. And then he came back to Middle Earth once he was reborn, so to speak.
Yeah, and I think that isn't there one of the, like the books, The Fall of Gondolin? Isn't that?
Yeah, that recently came, well, I would say recently came out. That came out a few years ago, and I've got it on my reading list to read. I haven't gotten around to reading it yet, but it was something I was always interested in reading. Was The Fall of Gondolin.
Mm-hmm.
But it would be amazing to see what sort of lore is sitting in that book, just from a perspective of like the fantasy world itself, because we know bits and pieces here and there, but to actually have like official documentation is quite amazing, considering it came out, what, 40, 50 years after his death.
Right. Yep. Well, Gondolin definitely has its own rich history, and if you want to get into the first age stuff, this would be a good read to get into, probably. But we're talking about cards instead of books, so that's our sister podcast, Book Talk.
Go check out the Tolkien Road.
Yeah, right.
That's my shameless plug for the day.
I know, Tolkien Road is good stuff, but let me see here. Do you want to ring this card? Let me get back on track here.
Yeah, let's ring it.
Okay, so for anybody who may have forgotten, or maybe this is your first time here at Card Talk, we have a highly scientific yet arbitrary system where we rank a card on a scale from 1 to 10, where 1 is the one card in the card pool to rule them all, and a 10 is the card that we throw back into the fiery chasm from whence it was made, or a card that's not very good. So, Grant went first last time, so I will go first here. The Blade of Gondolin is good. It's not a card that you're going to build a deck around. You're going to what do I want to say? It started off good. It probably in the middle of the card, in the middle of the game's run, while it was still producing content, probably fell out of favor a little bit. But then came back with the advent of the Three Hunters contract. It became, I don't want to say more viable, because it was always a good weapon. It was always a good option. The conditional bonus. Yeah, there's a lot of orcs, but sometimes you want something that's just going to give you the added attack power. But the response is always good, and you can really kind of build Hero Legolas into something kind of silly. Tactics Legolas, I should say. So this is a good, a good weapon. It should be considered when you're running tactics, and so I think I'm gonna give this a 4. Grant?
I'd have to agree with everything you've said. It did lose favour quite a bit in the middle of the run, because there didn't seem to be as many orc-centric quests coming out, and there were more powerful weapons coming out with like a flat +2 or +1, or a +1 and then +2 if the enemy wasn't engaged with you, weapons coming out, which kind of pushed the Blade of Gondolin down. But if you had a quest where you needed to make progress quite quickly, and there was a fair number of enemies and locations coming out, this was always an option. So I'm going to give it a 4.
Okay, everybody, there you have it. That's our review of Blade of Gondolin. Join us again next week as we talk about more cards from the game. Have a great day, everybody.
Do you love the content? Here's what you can do to stay connected. Become a patron. The money collected through Patreon goes into keeping the lights on here at the podcast. We love our patrons, and you can join at many different levels. Visit patreon.com/cardtalk2018. You can subscribe to us, whether you're watching our YouTube channel or you're listening to us in your favorite podcatcher. Hit the subscribe button to get notifications of all our new episodes. Didn't know we were an audio podcast? Find us by searching Card Talk to get access to our 120 plus regular episodes. Didn't know we were a video channel? Find us by searching Card Talk LOTR LCG on YouTube. And there you can find not only our regular episodes, but you can find our bonus playthroughs and other content related to the game. Want to get a hold of Ted, Grant, or myself? Feel free to email the podcast at cardtalk2018@gmail.com.